castle already.
Yeah, and then there's that whole thing, like, we tend to go off and, like, have babies and stuff, and that's Jay's been so worried that you're coming back, right? I'm like, yes, I'm coming back.
He'll just strap a K2 meter to your
This kid's gonna be born with a big K2 in her hands. She's had so many investigations already. Poor thing. She only knew where she's been already. Alright, who's next? Oh,
right here.
Yeah.
Where's the scariest place you've investigated?
Well, I know my scariest place, and it wasn't because of ghosts. It was the Essex County Penitentiary, and this was a penitentiary in New Jersey that was abandoned and closed down, and it was this whole complex of buildings and old jail cells and things, and there are tunnels underneath. And for some reason, they kept sending Kris and I down there by ourselves. They're like, oh, tunnels, girls, disadvantage. So I'm down in the tunnels, and I'm by myself, but there's a camera operator with me. And at this point, we were there for like 2 or 3 nights. And at this point, I'm just like in that exploration mode where I want to see what else is going on in this place. And I look up, and there's like a manhole cover. And I'm thinking, oh, this must go somewhere. So I pull over this big barrel, and I climb up on top of it, and I lift up this manhole cover and stand up. And I'm in this old boiler room, but I'm also in the middle of a homeless man's nest. And like, I could see all of his things, and he was home. And so it was just one of those things where like, he looked at me and I looked at him, and we had this like moment, and I was like, yes, I'm leaving. And so I immediately vacated, put the manhole cover back down, turned to the camera operator and was like, we're not going that way. So that was literally the most terrifying moment on the show for me, because you expect these places to be clear, because usually security goes through and clears these buildings for us, but occasionally, there is like people, there's squatters and stuff in there, and there's these huge complexes. And I know when they did Buffalo Central Terminal, the tour guide had his hand broken by some man in the tunnels, like hit him with a crowbar or something. So I'm more afraid of the people, the live ones, than I am of the ghosts.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I've always said that I'm afraid of breathers, and it's crazy because when you're in a place and something happens, usually it's not really in your face. It's one of those things like, hey, what just happened? Did you hear that? And then once you realize what happened wasn't normal, then it's like, oh my God, and you're running around trying to figure it out, and you get excited and you hope it happens again. But as far as scary locations, it tends to be locations that history, again, kind of plays a factor in for me. When we were over in Denmark, we did this huge castle. And I love it, because here in the US, we'll feel like, oh, we're going to whatever castle. You don't know castles until you go to Europe. And you don't know dungeons until you're in one in Europe. This place was insane. And I was fine in it when it was, the camera guy and Barry and we were walking around there and had no problems or issues or whatever. But come the end of the night, I volunteered to go pick up the cameras and everything else alone. I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? It was so creepy. Everything was cement and rock, no lights, no windows, no nothing. Couldn't hear a sound. Couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And, just the stories that came out of this dungeon where they had this one room that went back like a triangle, and they'd stuff people in there and they'd slowly make the room smaller to the point that they couldn't move. They're just, squished up against each other. So stuff like that will get to me. Like the story will get into my head, and if I am there 100% alone, it sometimes can kind of get to you.
That's the scariest part too, the end of the night when you're off by yourself getting the cameras. That is really the scariest part. Because you can't go, like Kris and I used to have this like buddy system where I'd be like, Kris, there's this camera and it's really far away and it's kind of scary. And so we go with each other, but then she left, and what am I going to do? Tell Steve I'm scared. So now it's like, oh, like when we were cleaning up after Penhurst, after we did the live show, you know, we're cleaning up our cameras, and I'm walking and whistling, so I'm like, nothing bad can happen if I'm whistling. Like,
And then you do the just look at the ground.
you just look at the ground, you're whistling, you're humming, but yeah, that's the scariest part when you're off by yourself getting those cameras.
You really gotta watch your mind, it will start screwing with you.
Yeah, definitely. Who's next? Oh, there you are. Yes. How do you tell the difference between a poltergeist, a ghost, and a demonic possession?
Well, my understanding, the poltergeist isn't a separate entity. It's a person causing the activity around them, through whatever stress they're going through at the time. Demonic, I haven't dealt with.
No, and that's one of the biggest things we need to remember is that the demonic stuff. I do believe in it, and that, you know, elementals, that type of thing. I personally have not encountered anything that I would call demonic. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I have some very good friends, Mr. John Zappis being one of them, and he's definitely a great person to pick his brain on this. Another friend of mine, Adam Bly, is also a demonologist, and has a great website called religiousdemonology.com that you can read up on all this stuff. But it's extraordinarily rare for you to encounter something like that. And even when we have some sort of entity that seems negative, you have to always remember that just like in life, some people are just grumpy. You know, just because they died doesn't mean they're not a jerk still. So sometimes they do things like they'll scratch you and they'll break things and they'll throw things. And so you just have to remember that just because something's upset doesn't mean that it's necessarily a demon. There are a lot of other factors to those hauntings that we look for, you know, like the whole sulfur smell and just there's a lot more to it than just something being nasty. But and then it goes.
The big thing too is it's supposed to be inhuman and never lived as a human or as a person. Where a ghost is supposed to be, from what we believe, is a person who's passed over.